welcome to another video on my channel HAIRLICIOUSLY. If you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe so you guys are updated on hair loss and hair transplant content, as well as updates on current hair loss treatments in the pipeline. Visit my website at HAIRLICIOUSLY.com to purchase your low-level laser therapy cap, DHT blocking shampoo and conditioner, hair growth vitamins, anti-androgen pyrilutamide, and a few other products to help those who are losing hair. So in today's video, I actually have a huge update that I want to share with you regarding Dr. Tsuji. This guy has been MIA for the longest time, and I think the last update that I did on my channel was about 2 years ago. But I am happy to report that he's back and he's still in the game in the field of hair stem cell multiplication. And apparently he's been pretty busy over the past couple of years in trying to push forward the research that he and his team have been working on for the hair loss community for the past decade. Now, if you guys don't recall, Dr. Tsuji is best known for his research and work involving the creation of fully polarized hair follicle germs. His research back in 2012 showed that by removal of two types of stem cells from a human hair follicle, it was actually possible to induce a brand new fully functional human hair follicle in a rodent model. Now, Dr. Tsuji's research is particularly interesting when you consider that these two types of stem cells are the same type of cells that develop our hair follicles in the prenatal period. These two types of stem cells, the epithelial and mesenchymal cell interactions, clump together in the skin during the prenatal stage, and they actually communicate together to form a hair follicle in what is known as morphogenesis. And there's a lot of studies and research that have elucidated the central role of the epithelial and mesenchymal cells in this process. We also know that there are various signaling pathways, such as the Wnt signaling pathway, the bone morphogenic proteins pathway, the sonic hedgehog, which are a few signals that modulate hair follicle morphogenesis and cycling. These two types of stem cells would be obtained from the back of the donor area. They would be placed in a culture to allow for multiplication, and then put together in a 3D environment to mimic the skin. And just like the prenatal period, these cells should then signal with each other to form the very beginning of a hair follicle, also known as follicular primordium. A ton of these hair follicle primordiums would then be ready to be delivered into the scalp via injection, where it should theoretically grow into a fully functional healthy hair with normal regenerative capabilities and cyclical phases on bald areas. And from prior updates on Dr. Tsuji that I've covered, we know that a single hair follicle that is taken from the back of the scalp is going to be adequate enough to create 100 new hair follicles. So, with this technology, a NORD7 could easily obtain a full head of hair, and this would basically serve as a cure to hair loss. Now, the last update that I did on Dr. Tsuji was probably back in 2021, where their venture company, Organ Technologies, was supposed to handle the business aspect for mass producing the hair follicle regenerative medicine technology. But due to financial constraints, they had to suspend their operations, and Dr. Tsuji and Rogaine eventually had to reach out to the public to request nearly $5 million in donations of funding in order to kickstart their human clinical trials. And my guess is that, they weren't able to accrue the $5 million that was needed to kickstart human clinical trials because they were on a really long hiatus for a long time. And despite numerous emails that I've sent to Rogaine and Dr. Tsuji, I never received a response back, nor did we get any updates on what was actually happening with Dr. Tsuji and his research. So, fast forward to 2023, it turns out that Dr. Tsuji had taken over Organ Technologies' debt in 2021 in order to prevent patent loss for their hair multiplication technology. They also renamed the company to Organ Tech with Dr. Tsuji as the founder. And the best part about this whole ordeal is that Organ Tech plans to start hair regeneration related clinical trials in 2024 with the financial support of Kobayashi Pharmaceutical, which is a Japanese bioventure company. So, this is actually pretty good news because they're now in a position where they have the financial backing to finally kickstart their human clinical trials for hair multiplication. They also presented their hair multiplication technology at the Startup Mentoring Program hosted by the Tokyo New Business Council, which is basically a fundraising opportunity for startup companies to gain awareness for potential investors to invest in their company. So they're very much been proactive in making sure that there are not going to be any further delays, at least not from a financial standpoint. There was also an article dated November 2022 from Asahi Shimbun Globe, which is Japan's version of the New York Times, where Dr. Tsuji was being interviewed, and in that interview, he made claims that he is planning on drawing a blueprint to assemble a new management team, raise funds, conduct clinical research, and start free medical care using seeds from fiscal year 2026. Now, the seeds that he refers to is the hair follicle regenerative technology, and I'm not honestly sure exactly if he means that he plans on starting human clinical trials in 2026, or if he actually plans on offering the regenerative treatment by 2026, which would mean that if it were offered by 2026, then clinical trials would have to commence in 2024, as OrganTech has mentioned. Either way, we also know that Japan has one of the most favorable and fast-track approval pathways for stem cell therapies, with the bar for regenerative therapies dramatically lowered by requiring only limited safety and efficacy data, and essentially doing away with the need for high-powered phase 3 clinical trials. Companies will only have to demonstrate efficacy in pilot studies of as few as 10 patients in one study if the change is dramatic enough, or a few hundred when improvement is more marginal. So overall, I think that this is extremely good news given the fact that Dr. Tsuji, Kyocera, Rogaine, and OrganTech are now financially secure. They are able to move forward to clinical trials to confirm the safety and efficacy of their hair regenerative technology with the ultimate goal of practical application. Now, with that said, I wouldn't rely too heavily on them starting clinical trials in 2024 because, this was something that was supposed to be done years back in 2020. And, I get that stuff happens, COVID being a big factor from 2020 and 2021 and other roadblocks. So just take that with a grain of salt, given Dr. Tsuji's history of just going MI at times. But as far as the research, I think that is one of the best and solid technologies out there. And given their timeline, it's probably one of the closest that we can actually get for hair multiplication anywhere in the world. And also with that said, and I've also talked about this issue in a prior video covering Dr. Tsuji and also one of the interviews that I've actually done. But one of the disadvantages about this regenerative hair stem cell multiplication treatment is that the extracted dermal papilla cells from the occipital region of the scalp are not going to be 100% guaranteed to be DHT resistant. This means that specific hair characteristics from these epithelial and mesenchymal stem cells will still carry over, and they can actually still induce miniaturization and still be genetically programmed to be afflicted with androgenetic alopecia, or at least thin out to a minimum. And there really isn't, an accurate test to see which hair follicles are or aren't going to be 100% androgen resistant. And this principle, also applies to the traditional conventional FUE or FET hair transplantation. Patients will typically still need to resort to anti-androgens and 5-AR inhibitors like finasteride or dutasteride to slow down further miniaturization, even with transplanted hairs, as well as to protect the native hairs from miniaturizing. All in all, you still get nearly an infinite supply that can regenerate through their culture method that can amplify hair follicle epithelial stem cells while maintaining the ability to regenerate hair follicles. And this is hopefully going to be more than enough to cover a balding scalp many folds. But I do also want to stress the fact that you will likely have to still get on preventative treatment unless you resort to some type of, editing genes in vitro so that these stem cells do not express proteins like 5-AR. Our only hope moving forward with human clinical trials is that Dr. Tsuji's technology enables the reproductive hair follicle to connect adequately to the surrounding tissues and be reproduced functionally via autologous stem cells. But anyway, I am really looking forward to the long-awaited human clinical trials, and hopefully this will be a game changer for the hair loss community. I will definitely keep you guys updated if I get any more updates. And just keep in mind that, we may not hear from them for a while, and this is kind of given the history of Dr. Tsuji and Rogaine and Kyocera. So don't really expect anything from them, or at least anytime soon. But do let me know in the comment section what you think on Dr. Tsuji and his hair multiplication regenerative technology. Until then, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Take care.